In this video, you will transfer masks from the retouched layer to a layer group, and you will create grids in Vanishing Point. Open the postoffice2.psd file and observe that the retouched layer is masked so that the siding is selected, and we can see that by turning off the background layer. However, because the retouched layer is masked, we are effectively eliminating what we did on the retouched layer, which was to remove these wires. So it's necessary to create a layer group and transfer these masks to it. And that will allow us to use the retouched layer for what it really was designed for, and that is to remove some of the unwanted elements. So let's target the retouched layer and then click this icon, which allows you to create a new layer group. Rename that layer group Vanishing Point. And then create a new layer inside that group and rename that Siding. So ultimately, the new siding will go on this blank layer. Then target this layer and drag its layer mask thumbnail from the retouched layer to the Vanishing Point group and drop it there. And drag the vector mask in just the same way. So we've simply transferred the masking from the retouched layer up here into this layer group. Now we can see the whole retouched layer, which includes the retouched wires and objects that have been removed. And you can see what those were by toggling it off and on. Now target the siding layer, which is where ultimately the siding will go, and go up to the filter menu and choose Vanishing Point. The Vanishing Point filter opens up this dialog box interface. Use the zoom tool here on this vertical toolbar and drag out a window around the post office. Vanishing Point is where we create grids that represent the perspective of the image. This will allow us to replace textures correctly. So go up here and click the Create Plane tool. And the way that this works is you have to click 4 corners of a perspective plane. So I'm going to click the first corner starting here, and then another corner here, and then another corner right about here, and the final corner right about there. This creates a grid, and it currently turned red. Depending on the exact pixel that you click on, this might be blue, yellow, or red. Go ahead and drag one of the corners and you can see it turned yellow. And our goal here is to turn it blue, like that. Once it is blue, you can then resize it by moving its middle handle down. And you can change the perspective by dragging any of its corner handles around. What we want to do is line up these inner horizontal lines with the horizontal line in the shingles. And you can change the grid size interactively by dragging left and right on the word grid size. The grid size value doesn't matter. It's just going to allow us to alter that grid so that we can line these things up. And this looks good over here, but it's dropping too low on the left. So I need to pull this up. That looks good. I can drag this up and down, and so it's getting this little piece of siding down below here. Once you're satisfied with the matchup of this grid to the perspective implied in this surface of the building, it's time to create the other surface of the building. Hold down the Command key on the Mac or the Control key on Windows. Put the cursor right here on this middle handle, and you'll see that it changes to this symbol. Then drag off a new plane over here. In this new plane, we need to adjust its perspective also. You can use grid size to change this, and I think it's a little bit high over here. So I'm going to adjust this handle, see if I can compensate for that. That looks better. It looks really good in here, but up here, is it as good? I'm not sure. I need to adjust the grid size and find out. Now it's a little high, so I'm going to drag this down. Perhaps I'll drag this one as well to make a nice matchup between the perspective inherent in this grid and the perspective implicit in the photo. Once you're satisfied, you have both grids. Go ahead and click OK. Now it doesn't look like anything has been accomplished, but indeed it has. You've stored this perspective information in the file. And in the next video, you'll create a texture that you'll ultimately bring back in here and use to replace the shingles on the post office currently. So in this video, you learned how to transfer the masks from one layer to a layer group, and you also created perspective grids in Vanishing Point.